The D1Softball bracket has just been unveiled. Michella Chester here with NCAA Digital, joined by Tara Henry from D1Softball. Tara, your biggest takeaway from the bracket in the field of 64. What do you think?
Michaela, thanks so much for having me, first and foremost. But biggest takeaway is that was wild. Absolutely wild. That bracket, I think we were on here a year ago and we spoke about how well the selection committee did in terms of seating. And this year, the only thing I could say is it was wild.
And Tara, how about some of the biggest storylines in this year's tournament?
If we head out to the Los Angeles regional, you're going to see some former UCLA Bruins as head coaches out there, and Dot Richardson with Liberty and Stacey Newman-Denise with San Diego State. That's one interesting storyline. And I'd also like to welcome the 7 newcomers to the NCAA tournament. We've got Charlotte, Eastern Illinois, George Mason, Northern Colorado, Northern Kentucky, Omaha, and North Carolina Central.
All right, so we've got 7 new teams this year.
Crazy. Incredible. 7 new teams in the tournament. And gosh, that's got to be the greatest feeling. And I got to see some of their reactions and their names being called into the tournament, and excited to see how they fare heading into regionals week.
What was your biggest surprise? I have a feeling as to what you might say here, but what was the biggest surprise when the regionals and everything was unveiled?
I think Alabama at number 5 just was shocking. And I think the rest of the country was shocked to see Alabama at number 5. In terms of, I know the selection committee is weighting wins against top 10 teams, so I understand that. But with an RPI at 12, they did have 9 top 25 wins. But I'm looking at those tough losses in that they had, 3 losses against teams 50 to 200. So surprised and shocked with Alabama at number 5, but there's so much that we can discuss, and that was just the first thing that came to mind.
So you mentioned Bama up at 5. SEC leads with 5 teams hosting. What are your thoughts on the conference breakdown in terms of the top 16 seeds?
It's no surprise that the SEC has 5 hosts: Arkansas, LSU, Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia. We've got the Pac next at 4, UCLA, Utah, which we'll get into, Washington and Stanford. Then the ACC and the Big 12 with 3 apiece. And then the Big 10, Northwestern is representing for the Big 10. So I'm not surprised to see 5 SEC hosts. That shows you the strength of the SEC, but I'm most surprised to see Utah and UCLA and Washington and Stanford, those 4 in terms of the Pac, get those bids. Not surprised about, UCLA, Washington, Stanford. Just surprised the Pac has 4.
Yeah. Is there anyone you think maybe should have been a host that wasn't, got snubbed? What do you think?
We'll take a look at Louisiana. I think in looking at the bracket, we saw UCF make a big push last year and a non-Power 5 host in the Knights. So we were looking at maybe potentially a Louisiana as a host. So in terms of those top 16 seeds, Auburn got a little bit of a snub, and Baylor. So those 2 were the ones that were on the bubble in terms of hosting, and just surprised with Louisiana's RPI that they didn't get a host.
Yeah, and Utah did get a host in there right at number 15, hosting after not making the tournament last year, Tara, which is a huge turnaround. They just won the Pac-12, upset UCLA. What do you think of this team and the Utes right now and how they're performing?
I spoke to Amy Hogue in the offseason this past fall, and she was really excited about this team. And I think not being able to play in the NCAA tournament just a season ago really lit a fire under that squad. And she's been really high on what they've been able to do. And we saw how well that team can play. UCLA swept them in the Pac-12 regular season, then to come back and win the first ever Pac-12 championship. They're just running on all cylinders, including Mariah Lopez in the circle. But hopefully those 2 that were hurt in that Pac-12 champ game, in Jimenez and Jaquez, are okay and able to play in the regional this next weekend.
So let's take a look at some of the regionals. I want to go through what you think is the toughest regional and then maybe the regional with the easiest path to the Women's College World Series. So let's take a look at that.
Some people are saying that Utah has the toughest regional with that Ole Miss and Baylor, which I agree with. But I'm looking at the Tallahassee regional. I think Florida State has another tough regional this year. Obviously, a season ago, lost to Mississippi State, and this year they have UCF and South Carolina. They'll play Marist in their first game, but Donnie Goborn and the Gamecocks, I've just been really impressed with them as of late. And that's a hot squad that I wouldn't want in any regional I was in.
Me neither. I mean, it's crazy how well they're playing right now. What about the easiest path to the Women's College World Series? Not that anything's easy here, but what do you think? Who has the best path?
It's funny because we just talked about Alabama at the 5 seed, and I'm going to go straight back to the Tide. I think if you've got a healthy Montana Fouts, I think getting through that region with LIU, Middle Tennessee, and Central Arkansas has been a tough squad all season long, but they're paired with potentially Northwestern. So that could be a fun super regional Alabama Northwestern if that comes into fruition. But in terms of path to the Women's College World Series, if Montana Fouts is healthy, I think the Tide have the easiest path.
Okay, interesting. All right, so how about regionals with some serious upset potential? Let's go through a few of those.
I'm looking at that number 16 seed Clemson. Clemson's draws Auburn, Maddie Penta. I mean, we saw Maddie. I'm Maddie Penta. Love it.
I'm Maddie Penta. Mic drop. That's it.
I think that is going to be a really tough region. We already spoke about Tallahassee. I think that's going to be tough as well. But in terms of the toughest, I think it's going to be upset potential in Auburn, as well as we talked earlier. Utah's got a tough region.
Okay, and now I have a fun question for you. I think you're going to enjoy this one. Let's talk some hypotheticals. What do you think of what would be the craziest possible super regional matchups?
Well, we're taking a look at the potential Pac-12 championship matchup between UCLA and Utah. That's at 2-15. You take a look at Texas, Tennessee potentially. That could be a huge matchup. I would love to see a Texas, Tennessee super. And then Georgia, Florida State. We got a lot of pitching in Florida State. They know how to get it done. They run the bases well. They do the little things. And then paired with a really high-powered offense in Georgia, those potential supers are pretty juicy. And then we can head on over to Stanford and Duke. That could be an interesting super as well, with Nigeri Kennedy leading the Cardinal. And Duke on a gold. Can't say enough about what she does there. And obviously Jayla Wright and Cassidy Curd, the freshman, that rookie, is really impressed with her and what she's doing with the Blue Devils.
And not to mention, Tara, OU, possibly Clemson. I've got to ask this. Back-to-back champs, the most dominant team on a 43-game win streak. Who can challenge them?
Oh, gosh, that is a good question. And I think you're right that if Clemson can get through that regional, they'll be tough because Valerie Cagle throws that heavy down ball. That'll be tough for the majority of that OU lineup. But in terms of challenging the Sooners, it's going to be tough heading and beating that squad twice just because they are so well coached. But if Auburn does get through, they're scrappy. If Auburn does get through that regional, I think Auburn and Clemson could give the Sooners a run for their money. But I'm putting my money on OU. I think we'll be seeing them back in OKC.
And when it comes to, the national championship matchup, which team in the country do you think has the best chance to compete with them?
I think you're looking at a squad like Florida State. I think Florida State is battle tested. Lonnie Alameda, she took that squad throughout the country earlier in the season in conference play in the middle. She did midweeks on the road playing top 25 teams. I think Florida State has a shot. And of course, UCLA, if Brooke Yanez and Megan Framo can both throw their best ball, that offense will be able to get into those OU pitchers.
Absolutely. All right, one last one for you. I'm going to have you pick a surprise Women's College World Series team, a team that you think can get there that maybe others don't.
I'm taking Wichita State. I think the Shockers can potentially make it to the Women's College World Series. And let me tell you why. I think in terms of they've already beaten Oklahoma State twice. Mm-hmm. Can they do it a third time? If they can, they'll have to get through Arkansas. And I do believe if there was a path for a team to do it, I think Wichita State can get that done.
All right, Tara, sounds like a lot of fun. We've got a wild tournament coming up. I'm so excited. So much fun softball we're about to watch. But thank you so much, as always, for breaking it down.
Thank you so much, and I'll see you in OKC.
See you in OKC.